Lying through his expensive teeth, President Toothliar says he will restart nuclear weapons tests because of recent tests by China and Russia, which never happened, but will now. Russia did test a missile, not a nuclear bomb, but the two are easily mistaken for one another by poorly educated people. And liars. Snap, crackle, and pop goes the White Palace wizard, whose crony cabal hatched a plot to starve the poor by bankrupting Snap. Of course, it's the Dems' fault. They wanted to provide health care, which forced the grand old potty to deny food. Also affected is WIC, women, infants, and children. 3 segments of DEI almost Americans who continue to take men's jobs. In 1966, Fred Trump demolished a popular Coney Island amusement park. In 1980, Donald Trump promised to preserve treasured friezes atop a New York building he was demolishing to build Trump Tower. He didn't. In 2025, he promised not to touch the East Wing when he built his Golden Ballroom. He didn't. He merely demolished it. That's why he's your favorite president. Or else. Israel has reclassified the UN as a subsidiary of Hamas, but Trump says Israel will not annex the West Bank except for when they did the day before he made that up. So between the West Bank and the East Wing, the dog is marking his territory, which is not actually his, but when did that ever stop the rich? Or the bitch? Over the decades, Israel pretended to be desperate to give back the lands they weren't occupying to the people who didn't live there but were somehow still to be found littered all over the landscape, stealing the recipe for Israeli hummus and performing folk dances that were modeled after the Israeli ones. Chief election denier Heather Honey is now in charge of election integrity, which she plans to ensure by declaring a national emergency and seizing elections from the states. But Daddy, I thought we were for states' rights. It turns out that if you chop down rainforests to grow coffee, the climate changes. Rainfall falls, and the crops fail. Capitalism much? In AI v. The World news, AI data farms are stealing electricity and water from local communities worldwide, causing doctors to stitch by flashlight and leaving children unable to wash the hepatitis off their hands. Ireland hosts 120 data centers, draining 1/3 of the country's electricity. And in Spain, a group called Your Cloud Dries Up My River has won the Nobel Protest Naming Award. In response, the business community supports further development of themselves. They say they are committed to being good neighbors until they can empty the neighborhood. They also explain that theft of water and power are the prerogatives of power and the price of progress. Progress, a sociological term denoting the transformation of daily life to become more and more fucked. Local governments sign NDAs with tech companies to ensure transparency can be avoided. A local official in Querétaro, Mexico, noted that he signed the NDA as a public service, serving the public, apparently, by privatizing them. In some locales, data centers will have fresh water, while local folks will be provided with filtered sewage water. After all, the data must remain pure. Indigenous herders now find their grazing land fenced off, but not to worry, we'll soon have AI goats. AI indigenous people will take a bit longer. As for the food and insulin and such that spoil during blackouts, price of progress. In Santa Cruz, of course, increasing numbers of surfers and sea otters are engaged in a turf, or rather surf war, with otters clambering aboard surfboards and nipping their riders to gain control. The crisis has triggered the entry of ICE agents who have captured an offending pregnant otter and separated her from her pup. Okay, maybe not. The increase in surfer population crowds otters out, as with wildlife generally in the world. Bears in the burbs, otters on the surfboards. Price of progress. The otters should self-deport and understand they have no right of return. Zohran Mamdani has a plan to replace police on mental health calls with community safety workers, which could right-size the force. And I do mean force. Police mafia union leaders are predicting that a Mamdani victory will provoke a mass exodus of trumped-up cops. The candidate has been consulting with officers at all levels who are willing to meet with him. Apparently, you can't win city office without the support of gangs of armed thugs, who by law can't be involved in politics, but are. They were particularly incensed with Mayor de Blasio when he gave his black son a talk about how to relate to police, as if there was some kind of historical and present issue there. The talk is considered the ultimate expression of the woke virus. No mention thus far in this kerfuff of the actual function of police, which is ensuring order, albeit an unjust order. This explains why business people need reassuring about the Zohran's intentions. Since the ongoing perpetual brutal siege on the poor is conducted in their interest.